It was morning tea time at a conference, and we'd paused for a cup of coffee. I'd grabbed a cup and found myself seated at a table with half a dozen other young people. As we were talking, I discovered that two of the couples were planning on getting married just later that year. And I shared lightheartedly the fact that I'd been married for 45 years, and one of them turned to me and said, "What advice can you give us?" Well, 10 minutes, come on. How could you sort of give advice in 10 minutes? But then I realised that they were quite serious. They were asking me a deliberate question. What can I tell them to help them? Because they were aware that so many marriages were failing. And so I drew on the advice of a middle-aged bachelor that I know, a confirmed bachelor. But you might say, well, hang on a second, a confirmed bachelor, what advice could he possibly give? But as I shared with them just a little bit of the insights from Paul relating to marriage and tried to summarise that very quickly for them, I believe that, well, they admitted it was some thoughts that they hadn't considered and they considered to be very valuable. And it would be summarised in just a few words: love and honour. You see, when Paul was talking to the church in Ephesus, he said to them specifically that husbands are to love their wives, and in some of the translations that people have trouble with, he used the word submission. Wives, submit to your husbands. Well, probably blind, abject obedience doesn't work really well there, and a far better word to use to catch what Paul was trying to say to us is honour. So I picked up those two words and just ran with those just for a few moments, for 10 minutes. First of all, talking about love. And the reason that Paul says for husbands to love their wives is that women are built with a need to be loved. I remember the first time somebody suggested to me, I said, well, that's no trouble. I can love my wife. I can make love to my wife any time they like. But wasn't quite what was being intended. Sexing a wife isn't loving a wife. Loving a wife is loving her in a way that she is appreciated for herself, who she is, what she is, not just because of her femininity. Her femininity is appreciated, is honoured, but that isn't the sole reason why we love her. Because she has this deep need to be loved, we as husbands are to feed that need by loving her. I expounded that as quickly as I could. I only had 10 minutes. But it is very, very true for us as modern husbands in a world that puts forward all sorts of other values, that we find out what it is that makes our wives feel loved and then go out of our way to honour that, to feed that within her spirit. On the other side, men are a little bit different. Men don't always appreciate bunches of roses and chocolates, but men need honour in the same way as a woman needs love. And when he isn't receiving that, it causes problems within a marriage. These days, of course, it isn't part of the course for people to be honouring one another the way that possibly we should be. And very often wives have said to me that they feel their role is to keep their husbands in their place, make sure that he doesn't get a swelled head. Well, probably the wrong attitude to be taking. You see, inside of him, just like she has a need to be loved, he has a need to feel honoured. And one of the ways that this presents problems is when the need for honour is overcome because she has seen him I like to use the expression, she's seen him in his underpants. She's seen him just like he really is. Other people see him with all his pretense and veneer and cover-up, but she sees the real man. Sadly, there's 2 days that can destroy a marriage, and one of those days is the first day that she realises that her husband only loves her for her femininity, for her body. And at that moment, she stops honouring her husband. She thinks of him as being somebody just a little bit subnormal because she isn't like her in his reactions. And so honour for him goes out the door. Another really sad day is when she discovers that she can manipulate her husband by using her femininity as some sort of a weapon against him. It's a weapon that an honest, God-fearing man has very, very few armours against, and it's very, very hard for him to handle. And so she has started to dishonour him, and he stops loving her. The marriage can be destroyed very quickly. Okay, reverse those 2 pictures just for a moment. If the wife is wanting to be loved, and we've said that she does, then she has to work at being a wife who can be loved. There's no point in her asking him to love her if all the time she wants to pick an argument with him, if all the time she wants to keep the bedroom door locked, if all the time she wants to let herself slop and slouch around the house as somebody who isn't very pleasant company. She has to be somebody who is loving and willing to receive love from her husband. She has to deserve that love. But for the guys, this comes even harder. You see, we are to love our wives as Christ loved the church, even if she is doing things that we don't particularly like. We are to continue loving her unconditionally. But also, if we want her to honour us, we have to be people that she can honour. If we're not willing to be honourable people, then don't be surprised if our wife refuses to give us the honour that we so desperately crave. Don't be surprised if she doesn't submit to us. We can't force her to honour us. We can be honourable people so that she can honour us. 10 minutes. Just to share a very brief thought with a group of people who were embarking on marriage, but I believe that wisdom from Paul, the Apostle, the bachelor, but inspired by the Holy Spirit, is absolutely invaluable. God bless you guys.